Take one. Ow. Ow. My finger was in there. That was a first. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Chip, a historian here at the Oregon California Trails Association. Joining me today is Travis, our association manager. And today we are coming to you from our archives and library here in Independence, Missouri. And we are here today to pull some cool stuff out of the archives and show you all what we got hiding back here on our shelves.
Well, I've pulled a couple of artifacts and a couple of really old books, first editions, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But the first artifacts we pulled are Surveyor Chains. So I get the question a lot of, how do people know the distances of the American West? We can do a whole episode on the odometer that they did put on wagons, but in terms of generally having an idea of how long a trail was, for example, there was Surveyor Chains. So here's what a Surveyor Chain looks like. It just looks like a pile of chains. There are 100 links in this chain, and this chain is 22 yards long, or 66 feet. And why 66 feet? Well, if you divide 5,260 by 66, you get 80. So 80 of these equals 1 mile, 1 English mile. It's important to note that these were invented in 1620 by an English clergyman named Edmund Gunter. He standardized the English mile, being able to measure it. So, for example, this year, 2025, is the 200th anniversary of the famous Sibley survey. So George Sibley had been the first factor or superintendent at Fort Osage when it was a going concern from about 1808 to the early 1820s. But in 1825, he gets hired to survey the entirety of the Santa Fe Trail from basically Fort Osage out to where the United States ended along the Arkansas River. So he puts together a pretty big team, and they leave in July of 1825 at a point, just maybe 1.5 miles or so south of Fort Osage, near the town of Sibley, Missouri. We know about where they left from. It's kind of out in the field these days, but these are the types of chains they would have been using as they were moving west. We do have a couple of examples of these in our collection. I don't know that they get much use here anymore, but there are teams of people that keep this alive. There are groups of people that like to use this old equipment and still go out and play with it. Recently, we were at an event at Fort Osage celebrating the 200th anniversary of the Sibley survey. So interestingly, on the way back, they continued to survey and they noted some mistakes. They also were trying to create better shortcuts. By 1825, it's important to note that the Santa Fe Trail had been pretty well established for 4 years. In fact, in 1823, a surveying team that came out to survey what is now the western border of Missouri, where the state line is today at about 79th and state line in Kansas City, Missouri, and Leawood, Kansas, and there's a little park there that will detail that for you, but they talk about crossing the international boundary there, and they knew that because that had been surveyed 2 years prior. What's significant about Waltner Park? Well, in 1822, the first wagons that went west came right through here.
For those of you not from the area, State Line Road is the literal state line between Kansas and Missouri. If you're going south, you're on the Kansas side. If you're going north, you're on the Missouri side of the road. Moving on. Item number 2. What do we have now, Travis?
So item number 2 is a surveyor's compass. Having your survey chains is one thing, but you also need to know your directions. Certainly in the early 19th century, most compasses were made out of brass. And again, we were talking about handling artifacts and why it's important sometimes to wear gloves. Well, brass is a great example. And if you look closely here, you can see smudges that it looks like someone has touched it. These are actually fingerprints. So we'll need to get some cleaning agent, something that's pretty mild that will be able to clean that up. But when you open up the lid here, you can see it's got your cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. And these are gauged to both true north and magnetic north. And magnetic north obviously changes over time. Surveyors of that day understood this, and they could adjust these with this,
levels and
the levels and things like this. And they could make adjustments with this. So you would carry this. Now this one is really interesting because it has some engraving on the top, and your much younger eyes were able to decipher that for me. What it says: Missouri, June 6th, Deputy U.S. Surveyor, Northwest Territory, Martin O. Jones, born in Richmond, Virginia in 1801, parents killed by British in 1812, arrived in St. Louis in 1822.
Martin O. Jones, apparently at 21 years of age, was a surveyor.
And I did find out a little bit more information about Martin Jones. I see him listed here in Jackson County, Missouri in the mid-1840s. So he'd obviously made, in the next 20 years, at some point made his way over from St. Louis to Jackson County. He is listed in our Jackson County archives. 1844 through 46, he's mentioned.
And then there's another pencil mark on the inside of the box. It's just dated April 11th, 1859. And we don't know, I don't know what significance that has. So as we were saying, as time has gone on, these compasses do not retain their accuracy. We are facing straight south, and as we can tell here, it believes we're looking about 90 degrees to the west. It's lost a little accuracy over its 200-year existence, but we also discovered this was manufactured in New York, in Troy, New York, by the W.L.E. Curley manufacturers. So to still have that original sticker in there is pretty cool. Tell us where it came from. This is a great artifact that shows you it has all of its provenance just built right into the artifact itself, because we still have the sticker of where it was purchased, the person who purchased it, and a little bit about their personal history engraved in here.
As well as an interesting date from a little later etched into the box itself.
Yes, and then you will see there's some tissue paper under here. These are the little guides that would go into these holes here when you put it on it, mounted on a tripod, so you could level it out and see what you were doing at a higher distance. So we have, our little
and there's a couple
guides.
of of those in there. As he said, you'd be able to set it as a base and get your accurate.
Yeah, you can see there are little bubble levels that used to be on here. It's interesting how technology's changed, and some still say the same. A bubble level is still going to help you frame out a house, whether it was now or 200 years ago. We've got some water stains on here. Somebody put their coffee cup up here at one time. Well, no, I mean, but that could be from the 1850s. Who the hell knows?
It probably is. I mean, look at the age of that.
Right.
We'll have to get into
this
that
box is still in great shape. We still have the original lock. We still have the hooks that still line up. We're not damaged at all. We got a little chip here on the side, a little cracking on the bottom. Oh, there's more.
Oh yeah, here we go.
R.H. Jones, Independence, Missouri. All right, look at that. We'd never flip this thing over. The mystery continues. All right, whenever you're ready.
All right. So this next artifact is actually a book, and it may well be one of the oldest, if not the oldest book in our collection. What you see before you is a first edition 1807 Journal of Patrick Gass. Who was Patrick Gass, you might ask? Well, he was one of the higher ranking men with Lewis and Clark, and he was actually the first to publish his writings, his journal. And here we have a really poorly, bad shape version of it. I'm not going to open it. You can see it's barely holding together.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the one that was released before the official Lewis and Clark record of the journey. So this was kind of
That's correct, and there was a bit of consternation over that. We won't get into that in too much detail, but
there's our word for the day.
Yeah, consternation. It's all that fancy book learning. Anyway, speaking of book learning, this details Patrick Gass's version of events. There were multiple people keeping diaries and keeping logs along the way. Of course, William Clark's was kind of the definitive one. Lewis had a lot of troubles getting his published. The University of Nebraska has done a really good job over the years of editing and making available for mass consumption the words that are contained in this. So we don't actually need to open this because there are later versions that you can buy.
We can go see what's inside of it.
But what's really cool about Patrick Gass, he's just an interesting guy. He's born in Virginia, and by 1792 or so he's joined the Army, and by 1794 he's also working as a carpenter. By 1803 he's at Fort Kaskaskia, and that's really important because as Lewis and Clark are coming down the Ohio and up the Mississippi, they stop at Kaskaskia and recruit a few more men, and Gass is one of those, and he's really instrumental being a carpenter. He builds the forts that they stay in both in Illinois and in Oregon. He hews a lot of the canoes. He's just really good with wood. And he also lived to be 98 years old. He didn't die until 1870, just shy of his 99th birthday.
So all the way from the American Revolution through the Civil War and Reconstruction. That's a lot of change. So this is a leather bound? Is this leather originally and then?
Well, fortunately there are There are conservators here in the Kansas City area that could help us restore this, and we probably ought to look into it, because I just looked this up on Abe Books, which for those of you that buy rare books, you can own a first edition yourself for the low price of roughly $12,000 to $18,000, depending on which buyer you buy from. But ours is not for sale.
Well, I'll let you handle that one, because that's worth more than my entire motorcycle collection. So.
All right, moving on.
I believe this one I can touch.
Yeah, this is that's been rebound.
This is another first edition?
Yes, this is a first edition that's been rebound. Fremont Exploring Expedition to the Rocky Mountains in 1842, published in 1845. This really became the Bible, the guidebook, if you will, prior to other guidebooks, of people heading west. People going west would now know where to go, because Fremont, with his surveying crew, was mapping the west. So these were printed by the U.S. Senate and sold widely. We have a companion map, a large frame map, that I think we might have, did we showcase that in an
We did
earlier
that,
one?
yes, we did that in the last episode. That was the one that was donated in the Hopper collection.
That's right.
Yeah. And then this one was
1843 Fremont.
These are the originals.
These are the originals.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, this book is kind of the companion piece to that map.
I don't want to open the spine all the way.
Yeah. Again, you can procure later editions of this that are not as delicate, but we do have an original version of the Fremont expedition findings. So this is a fold-out version of the large framed map that we have.
In Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah, you can see they were
Rio, Sacramento. Okay.
they were detailing the topography as you went along, and you can see they kind of meandered around a little bit.
I mean, you go through and look at this one, it's not nearly as fun, because it's just a lot of tables and distances and maths and appendices full of numbers. Oh, here we go. So this is what's rare from a lot of these older books, is to have these illustrations still survive, because a lot of these would get cut up and turned into people's art, wall art. Why you can just cut this out and put it on the wall. Why would I pay for something?
But it's also really neat because they were detailing a lot of the discoveries they were making. Most Anglo people had never been west. They didn't know what to expect or what to see. The Lewis and Clark journals do the same, talking about the flora, the fauna, the topography that they're encountering, the people, as these wagon trains get underway. And you got to remember, by 1845, there's only been a few thousand people go west. The floodgates don't really open for another 4 years. But Fremont's already laid the groundwork with his mapping of the west and where these trails lie.
They had a paleontologist with them. That would have been a new science at the time. Water damage. This thing has been wet at one time in its life and missing multiple pages. Wow.
So you were just talking about how people would cut pages out.
Yeah, we're missing
an example.
4 pages, 101 to 105. We're missing way more than that.
Probably a lot of illustrations.
Probably a lot of illustrations. Probably color. Yeah, if anything in color would have been. Well, going back to my other point, yeah, we have. You can see here we have a very nicely cut. Probably all of the better illustrations.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. So, well, yay, old things. Did we have anything else today, or is that going to be it for us?
I figure we might want a future episode, so I'd say...
Well, yeah, we can't do the whole archives.
I mean, we've still got guns, swords, and all kinds of cool stuff.
Wagon wheels, tools to make tools.
Things that people would have thrown off their wagons, furniture.
Why are people throwing furniture off their wagons?
I think they realized getting west and not getting bogged down by weight was more important than Grandma's rocking chair. So a lot of time, Grandma's rocking chair got left on the side of the road.
Well, join us next time as we look at Grandma's rocking chair. We have something like that here, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, we got something like that here.